You know that person who keeps deleting apps, throwing things away, and saying they just want a simple life? Most people think minimalism is about taste, clean rooms, neutral colors, aesthetic discipline. But for many people, minimalism isn't style, it's a psychological response. People who are drawn to minimalism often reached a point where life felt too loud, too many expectations, too many choices, too many identities to maintain. At some stage, their brain connects overload with danger, so it does what it always does to survive. It reduces. What most people don't realize is that this reduction isn't random. It's selective. Minimalists don't remove things because they hate beauty or comfort. They remove what creates friction between them and their inner calm. When life becomes overwhelming, the brain looks for patterns and clutter becomes an easy target. Here's the part nobody says out loud. Minimalism is rarely about loving emptiness. It's about hating unnecessary mental responsibility. Every object asks something from you. Maintenance, attention, emotional attachment. Minimalists subconsciously calculate that cost and decide most things aren't worth it. This constant cost calculation is happening in the background of their mind. While others see a harmless object, minimalists see a future obligation. Something to clean, something to organize, something to worry about losing. Over time, their tolerance for that mental noise drops. Less becomes relief. But here's the contradiction. Many minimalists are mentally intense people, deep thinkers, high self-awareness. Their mind is already crowded with thoughts, questions, and internal dialogue. External clutter doesn't inspire them, it exhausts them. So they simplify their surroundings to compensate for mental complexity. In a way, minimalism becomes balance. When the internal world is loud, the external world must be quiet. Their environment acts like a stabilizer for their thoughts. The fewer distractions around them, the more clearly they can think, reflect, and exist without feeling overwhelmed. Minimalism also creates a sense of control. When life feels unpredictable, reducing possessions gives the illusion of stability. You can't control people, you can't control outcomes, but you can control what enters your space. Owning less becomes a way to feel grounded in a world that rarely is. This is especially true for people who've experienced chaos, instability, or emotional overload earlier in life. Minimalism becomes a safe structure, a way to say this much is manageable, this much I can handle. It's not about restriction, it's about regulation. Psychologically, many minimalists resist identity through objects. They don't want who they are to be frozen in material form. Tastes change, values evolve. What felt meaningful once may feel foreign later. Minimalism protects them from being trapped by past versions of themselves. They prefer identity as something internal and flexible, not something locked into physical symbols. To them, objects shouldn't define who they are. They're allowed to change without needing to explain old versions of themselves to anyone. But let's be honest, minimalism isn't always wisdom. Sometimes it's avoidance. Fewer belongings mean fewer emotional anchors. Less attachment means less vulnerability. For some people, reducing life is safer than engaging with it fully. The behavior looks the same, but the motivation is completely different. Healthy minimalism comes from intention. Unhealthy minimalism comes from fear. One clears space to live more deeply. The other shrinks life to reduce risk, and the line between the two is thinner than people admit. What most minimalists won't tell you is this: once you experience mental quiet, you crave it. Silence becomes addictive. Empty space feels powerful. They start valuing peace over stimulation, presence over possession, depth over display. Over time, this changes how they move through the world. They become more selective with people, commitments, and even conversations, not because they're cold, but because they've learned how expensive distraction really is. So if someone seems content with very little, don't assume lack. Many minimalists aren't trying to escape life. They're trying to hear themselves think. And in a world obsessed with more, choosing less becomes its own form of power. If this shifted how you see minimalism, subscribe for more psychology breakdowns. And if you want to support this channel, consider joining. It helps keep this kind of content alive.